Welcome to my channel, Karma Vault Story. If you believe that family should always come before money, this story may make you think twice. Because sometimes, the people who know exactly how hard you worked for your money are the same people who feel entitled to take it. My name is Daniel Carter. For 7 years, I worked 2 jobs, lived below my means, and saved almost every dollar I could. I didn't inherit money. I didn't win the lottery. I earned it. By the time I turned 32, I had managed to save $145,000. That money represented years of skipped vacations, cheap dinners, old clothes, and countless nights when I came home too exhausted to do anything except sleep. I had one goal: buy my own house. My parents knew about the account. So did my younger sister, Jessica. But I never imagined that knowing about my savings would make them believe the money belonged to them. One Saturday afternoon, I went to my parents' house for dinner. Everything seemed normal. My mother was cooking. My father was sitting quietly in the living room. And Jessica was scrolling through her phone at the kitchen table. Then my mother suddenly said something that made me freeze. "Daniel, we made a decision." I looked at her. "What decision?" She smiled. "We added your sister to your $145,000 account." For a second, I honestly thought I had misheard her. "You did what?" Jessica looked up from her phone. My mother repeated it casually. "We added Jessica to your savings account. She's family. We thought it was only fair." My heart started pounding. I stared at my mother, then at Jessica, then at my father. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was joking. I slowly stood up. "Mom, that's my account." She frowned. "Of course it's your account, but Jessica is your sister." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What does being my sister have to do with my savings? Jessica finally spoke. "You have $145,000 sitting there, Daniel. You don't even have a house yet. I actually need help." I asked her what she meant. She told me she had debts, credit cards, a car payment, rent, and several other expenses. Then my mother said the sentence that changed everything. "You're doing better than her. Family helps family." I looked at my father. He finally raised his eyes. And what he said next made my stomach drop. "Your mother already handled it." I reached for my phone. I opened my banking app. And that's when I saw something I never expected to see. There was a new authorized user on my account. Jessica Carter, my little sister. And suddenly, my $145,000 didn't feel safe anymore. I couldn't move. I kept staring at Jessica's name on my banking screen. Authorized user. Those 2 words felt unreal. I looked at my mother. "How did you even get access to my account?" She shrugged. "We're your parents." That doesn't answer my question. Her expression changed. For the first time that evening, she looked angry. "Daniel, don't make this into something ugly." I almost laughed. "You added someone to my personal bank account without asking me." Jessica rolled her eyes. "You act like Mom transferred all your money." "Not yet," I said. She became silent. That word changed the atmosphere. My father stood up. "Nobody is trying to steal from you." "Then why is Jessica on my account?" My mother answered immediately. "Because you're family." I asked her whether Jessica had access to withdraw money. She said, "Only if necessary." That was enough. I told them I was going to contact the bank. My mother became furious. "You would embarrass your own family over money." I looked at her. "No, I'm protecting money I worked for." Jessica suddenly started crying. She said I had always treated her differently. She reminded me that she was my little sister. She said I had more opportunities than she did. And then my mother said something I would remember for the rest of my life. "Your sister deserves a chance too." I asked, "And I'm supposed to give her my savings?" "No," Mom replied. "You're supposed to help your family." I left that house without finishing dinner. On the drive home, my hands were shaking. I called the bank immediately. The representative checked my account. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Sir, your sister has been added as an authorized user. Can she withdraw money?" There was a pause. Depending on the account structure, she may have certain transaction privileges. I told her I had never authorized it. The representative placed me on hold. A few minutes later, she returned. "There was a request submitted 2 days ago." 2 days ago? Yes. I suddenly remembered. 2 days earlier, my mother had called me asking for my date of birth and the last 4 digits of my social security number. She said she needed them for family paperwork. I had trusted her. That trust had just cost me. The bank immediately began the process of removing Jessica's access. But before they could finish, something happened. I received a notification. A transaction had been attempted. Someone had tried to transfer $20,000. I stared at the screen. The transfer had been blocked. But now I knew something. My family wasn't simply planning to help Jessica. They had already tried to take my money, and they had done it behind my back. The next morning, I barely slept. At 7:14 a.m. my phone rang. It was the bank. The representative told me the attempted $20,000 transfer had been stopped because the security system flagged it. I asked who initiated it. She couldn't give me every detail over the phone, but she confirmed that it had been attempted through the access associated with Jessica. I sat on the edge of my bed. My sister had tried to move $20,000 from my account, and my mother had given her access. I immediately changed every password connected to my finances. I froze my credit. I contacted the bank's fraud department. Then I called my father. He answered, "Daniel, did Jessica try to take $20,000 from my account?" Silence. Then he said, "I don't know anything about that. Where is Mom? She's asleep. Wake her up." My father sighed. "Daniel, calm down." I am calm. But I wasn't. I was furious. My mother finally came to the phone. She didn't deny it. Instead, she said Jessica had only wanted to borrow the money. Borrow? Yes. Without asking me? We knew you'd say no. That sentence told me everything. They knew I would refuse, so they tried to do it without me. I asked my mother why Jessica needed $20,000. She told me Jessica was behind on several bills. I said that wasn't my responsibility. Mom became emotional. "You have no idea what it's like to watch your daughter struggle." I answered, "And you have no idea what it's like to work 7 years for something and discover your own family thinks they can take it." There was silence. Then my mother said something unexpected. "You've always been selfish." I felt something inside me break. Selfish? Because I wanted to keep money I earned? I told her I was done discussing it. She warned me, "If you make this a legal issue, you'll destroy this family." I replied, "Mom, I didn't destroy anything." "You did." "No. You did that when you decided my bank account was a family account." I hung up. That afternoon, I drove to the bank. I asked for complete documentation. Every authorization. Every login. Every attempted transfer. Every change made to the account. I wanted everything in writing. The bank manager looked at the documents and said something that made me realize how serious the situation was. "You should speak with an attorney before confronting them again." I asked why. He pointed to the attempted transfer. "If someone accessed your account without your permission, you need to protect yourself." I left the bank with a folder full of paperwork. For the first time, I understood something. This wasn't a family argument anymore. It was a financial dispute, and I was going to handle it like one. 3 days later, my mother called. She wanted everyone together. "Just one family meeting," she said. I almost refused, but I agreed. We met at my parents' house. My mother sat at the head of the table. My father sat beside her. Jessica sat across from me. The moment I walked in, I noticed something strange. Jessica looked confident. Too confident. My mother started talking. "Daniel, we want to resolve this without lawyers." I said nothing. She continued, "Jessica needs help. You have money. We think you should give her $30,000. I almost smiled. "Give? Yes. No." Jessica slammed her hand on the table. "You don't even care about me." I looked at her. "I care about you. I just don't believe caring means giving you money you didn't earn." She started crying. My mother immediately defended her. "You've always been favored." I stared at her. Favored? Jessica had received help with college, help with her first car, help with rent. When she lost her job, my parents supported her for almost a year. I had received none of that, because I had worked. I reminded them of this. My mother said, "That's because you were responsible." I replied, "Exactly." Then my father finally spoke. "Daniel, your mother and I made mistakes." Everyone became quiet. He looked at me. "Jessica does owe money." "How much?" He hesitated. "More than 20,000. I asked how much. He finally said, "Nearly 50,000. My stomach dropped. $50,000. And they had been planning to use my savings to solve it. I looked at Jessica. How much did you think you could take? She didn't answer. My mother did. 30,000 would solve most of it. I pulled the bank documents from my folder. Then I placed them on the table. This is the attempted transfer. Nobody spoke. I looked at Jessica. Did you try to transfer the $20,000? She looked at my mother, then at my father. Finally, she whispered, "Yes." My mother began crying. But I didn't, because something had changed. I wasn't the angry son anymore. I was the person sitting across from people who had deliberately crossed a line. I stood up. "I'm not giving Jessica $1. My mother shouted, "Then you're abandoning your family." I picked up my documents. "No." I looked directly at her. "I'm finally protecting myself from my family." I thought that was the end. It wasn't. The next morning, I received a message from my father. "Please call me." I ignored it. Then another message came. "There's something you need to know." That got my attention. I called him. His voice sounded different. Tired. He told me my mother hadn't told me the whole story. Jessica's debt wasn't simply from credit cards. There was something else. Several months earlier, Jessica had signed a private agreement with a former business partner. The business failed. She became personally responsible for a large amount of debt. My parents had been trying to protect her from creditors. That's why they wanted my money. Not because Jessica was struggling with a few bills. They wanted to use my savings as a financial rescue plan. I asked my father how long they had been planning this. He said, "About 3 months." 3 months. That meant every family dinner had been a lie. Every conversation. Every time my mother asked about my house plans. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was calculating. I asked the question that had been bothering me. "Why didn't you ask me?" My father sighed. "Because we knew you'd say no." Again. That sentence. They knew I would say no. So they decided my answer didn't matter. Then Dad said something unexpected. "Your mother wanted to take more than $20,000. I froze. "How much?" He said. "She originally wanted $50,000. I couldn't speak. $50,000. Nearly 1/3 of my savings. I asked why the attempted transfer was only $20,000. Dad said Jessica panicked. She had changed her mind at the last moment, but the attempt had already been made. I asked him why he was telling me all this. He answered, "Because I don't want to lose you." I closed my eyes. "Then why did you let it happen?" He had no answer. That silence hurt more than anything. Then he told me one more thing. My mother had been planning to tell relatives that I had refused to help my sister. She wanted everyone to believe I was selfish. I realized the family meeting hadn't been about resolving anything. It had been about controlling the story. They wanted me to feel guilty. They wanted me to surrender. And if guilt didn't work, they were prepared to make me look like the villain. But they made one mistake. They underestimated how carefully I had documented everything. And I had one more piece of information they didn't know about. A piece of information that would change the entire situation. The information was sitting inside my bank folder. It wasn't just the transaction history. It was a document showing exactly how my mother had attempted to add Jessica to my account. The bank had recorded the authorization request. And there was something else. A confirmation that my mother had submitted information claiming she had my permission. I stared at the document for several minutes. My mother hadn't simply asked for help. She had represented that I had authorized something I hadn't. I called the bank again. Then I spoke with an attorney. I explained everything. The attorney told me not to threaten anyone, not to post anything online, not to send angry messages. Just preserve the evidence and let the proper process handle it. So I did. I sent copies of the documents, the attempted transfer, the authorization request, the account records, the messages, everything. 2 days later, my mother called me. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "We need to talk." I asked what she wanted. "Come home." I said no. She became emotional. "Daniel, you're taking this too far." I asked, "Did you or did you not authorize Jessica to access my account?" She didn't answer. "Mom." Finally she said, "We were trying to help your sister." I replied, "You were trying to help her with my money." She started crying. Then she said, "You're choosing money over your family." I answered, "No. You chose money over my trust." Silence. Then she whispered, "Your sister needs us." I said, "Then help her with your money." That ended the call. For the first time, I stopped feeling guilty. Because I realized something important. There is a difference between helping someone and allowing them to exploit you. I didn't hate my sister. I didn't hate my parents. But I was no longer willing to sacrifice my future to protect them from the consequences of their choices. The bank removed Jessica completely. My account was secured. The attempted transfer became part of the official record. And then something happened that I never expected. Jessica contacted me privately. She didn't ask for money. She didn't cry. She simply said, "Daniel, I'm sorry." I didn't respond immediately. Then she added, "Mom told me you would eventually give in." That sentence made me realize something. My sister had believed the same lie my mother believed. That because I had money, my money was available. But there was one final conversation waiting to happen. And this time, I wanted everyone in the room. A week later, we met again. But this time I wasn't alone. My father came. Jessica came. My mother came. And I brought the attorney's letter. I placed it on the table. My mother stared at it. "What is this?" I said. "Formal notice regarding the unauthorized account access and attempted transfer." Her face went pale. She looked at my father, then at Jessica. Nobody spoke. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult anyone. I simply explained what had happened. Then Jessica started crying. I didn't know it would go this far. I looked at her. "You tried to transfer $20,000. I know. Without asking me. I know. Why?" She wiped her eyes. "Because Mom told me you would never miss it." I looked at my mother. She didn't deny it. That was the moment everything became clear. My mother had convinced herself that my savings were excessive, that I had more than I needed, that taking a portion wouldn't really hurt me. But she never asked what those dollars represented. She didn't see the 7 years behind that number. She didn't see the nights I worked late. She didn't see the sacrifices. She only saw $145,000. A number, an opportunity, a solution to someone else's problem. My father finally spoke. "We were wrong." My mother shook her head. "No." Dad looked at her. "Yes." He continued. "We crossed a line." My mother started crying. But this time, nobody rushed to comfort her. Jessica apologized again. Then she said something that surprised me. "I'll sell my car." I looked at her. She said she would sell whatever she could, take another job, and negotiate her debts. She finally understood that her problems couldn't simply be transferred to me. I told her I would help her find legitimate debt counseling, but I would not give her my savings. She nodded. That was the first responsible decision I'd seen from her in months. My mother remained silent. Then she looked at me. "Do you really want to take legal action against your own mother?" I answered honestly. "I don't want to." She looked relieved. "But I will protect myself if I have to." Her relief disappeared. That was the difference between revenge and consequences. I wasn't trying to destroy my family. I was simply refusing to let them destroy me. And then, just when I thought everything was over, my attorney called. There had been another discovery. The attempted $20,000 transfer wasn't the only financial transaction connected to Jessica. There was another account, and my mother's name was on it. The second account changed everything. My attorney explained that several months earlier, my mother had opened a separate account connected to the financial plan for Jessica. Money had been moving through it. Not my money, my parents' money, but the account showed something important. My mother had already been transferring funds to Jessica for months. Thousands of dollars. And my father had no idea how much. When he saw the records, he was stunned. He looked at my mother. "How much did you give her?" My mother didn't answer. Jessica started crying. Then my father asked again. "How much?" Finally, she admitted it. Nearly $32,000. My father sat down. "So that's where our retirement money went." My mother said, "I was helping our daughter." Dad shook his head. "You were hiding it." Suddenly, the problem wasn't just between me and my mother. My parents' marriage was being tested too. My mother had spent their savings trying to rescue Jessica. And when that wasn't enough, she had looked toward my $145,000. I realized then that my family had created a cycle. Every time Jessica made a financial mistake, someone else rescued her. And every rescue taught her that consequences didn't apply to her. I told my father, "This has to stop." He nodded. For the first time, we were completely on the same side. Jessica eventually agreed to sell her car and some other possessions. She found additional work. She contacted creditors. She started negotiating payment plans. It wasn't easy, but it was real. No secret transfers. No manipulation. No pretending. My mother, however, struggled to accept what had happened. She kept saying that everything had started because she loved her children. And maybe she did, but love without boundaries can become destructive. A month later, my mother came to my apartment. She stood outside my door. She looked older, tired. She said, "I owe you an apology." I let her speak. She admitted that she had become obsessed with protecting Jessica. She admitted that she had convinced herself I would eventually forgive her. Then she said, "I thought because you're my son you would understand." I answered, "I do understand." She looked at me. "I understand that you were scared." Then I paused. "But being scared doesn't make what you did okay." She nodded, and for the first time, she didn't argue. She simply said, "I'm sorry." I didn't know if I could forgive her immediately, but I knew one thing. My $145,000 was safe, and my future was mine again. Then came a part nobody expected. The money I had been saving for 7 years finally bought me something. But it wasn't just a house. It was freedom. 6 months later, I closed on my first house. I remember sitting in the empty living room on the first night. There was almost no furniture. Just a mattress on the floor, a small table, and a box of dishes. But I had never felt richer. Not because I had $145,000. Because nobody could tell me what to do with it. That money was mine. Every dollar represented a choice I had made. And for the first time, I understood the real lesson. Money doesn't reveal character. It exposes it. My family had always known I had savings. But the moment they needed money, I discovered what they really believed about me. They believed being family gave them access. They believed guilt could replace permission. They believed that because I had more, I owed them. But they were wrong. A few months after I moved into my house, Jessica called. She told me she had paid off one of her largest debts. She had found a better job. She had started rebuilding her credit. Then she said, "You were right." I smiled. I wasn't trying to be right. "I know. You just needed to learn." She was quiet. Then she said, "Thank you for not giving me the money." That sentence surprised me. She continued, "If you had given me $30,000, I would have solved the problem for a few months. But I would have learned nothing." I realized then that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to save them from every consequence. My relationship with my mother took longer to repair. We didn't return to normal overnight. Trust doesn't work that way. She had to rebuild it, slowly, through actions, not promises. My father and I became closer than we'd ever been. And my mother eventually started attending financial counseling with my father. The family changed, not because somebody won, but because the truth finally became impossible to ignore. As for me, I never again gave anyone access to my financial accounts. Not because I stopped loving my family, because I finally learned that boundaries are not betrayal. They are protection. And that brings me back to the $145,000. My mother once looked at that number and saw money that could rescue someone else. I looked at it and saw 7 years of my life. That was the difference. So if there's one lesson in this story, it's this. You can love your family without financing their mistakes. You can forgive someone without giving them access to your life. And you can walk away from people who cross your boundaries without becoming a bad person. Because karma doesn't always arrive as revenge. Sometimes karma is simply letting people live with the consequences of the choices they made. My family tried to take $145,000 from me. Instead, they taught me something worth far more. They taught me the value of boundaries, the value of trust, and most importantly, the value of never abandoning yourself just because someone calls you family. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to Karma Vault Story. Because sometimes the biggest betrayal comes from the people sitting closest to you. And sometimes the strongest comeback is simply protecting what you worked so hard to build.